this episode, I talk with the former editor-in-chief of Dread Central, Josh Millican. Josh has just released his first novel, Deeper Than Hell, through Encyclopocalypse Publications. I had a great time talking with Josh, and I hope you enjoy. But before I get into the episode, don't forget to check out my brothers of the podcast Apocalypse, Into the Necrosphere, Everything Went Black, and the Necromaniacs podcast. Definitely don't want to miss out on those. So thanks, and once again, hope you enjoy. All right, Josh, thanks for being on the podcast.
Hell yeah, thanks for having me.
I've also got to thank Sean of Encyclopocalypse for setting this up, so that was really cool of him.
Yeah, Sean, shout outs to him, man. He's been integral for me through this whole process, and as a first-time novelist, having someone like Sean to work with and an imprint like Encyclopocalypse to back me up, so your dream come true.
Yeah, he's super cool. I dealt with him, I think, during COVID. He sent me the novelization of Wishmaster, and I'm a huge fucking Wishmaster fan, and I reviewed it on my website and stuff, and fucking loved it, and I've been following them since, like all the cool shit he's been doing.
Oh yeah, man, he's been doing some great stuff. He and I went out to a book fair a couple months ago, and we met Peter Atkins, and then there was a showing of Wishmaster. I couldn't make it, but Sean went out to that with his son and had a great time at that. But yeah, I love what Encyclopocalypse does. Having novelizations and original fiction, it really puts them like right in the middle of literature and cinematography and cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of like where I am, because, before I released this novel, which comes out on June 14th, most people know me as a journalist. So, I kind of exist right in between film and literature, now that I'm the new kid on the block in the book club.
Right. Yeah. Because before this, you were the editor-in-chief of Dread Central, right?
Yeah. And before that, I was the managing editor, and before that, I was a contributor. So I spent a good 4 or 5 years at Dread Central, and just went on hiatus when my son was born 7 months ago. And then I just decided to go in a new direction. And, Deeper Than Hell was actually written before I started working for Dread Central. The original manuscript is written back when Obama was still president. So, I wanted to do something more, on my terms and on my timeline. So I dusted it off and, didn't have to shop it around too long before I met Sean, who has just been such a great support this whole time.
That's killer. Can you tell me a little bit about Deeper Than Hell without giving out any spoilers?
Yeah, sure. I've always been really interested in the idea of, people who live underground, either on purpose or because they're homeless or runaways or something. Really love the movie Chud. So, this is a movie about a couple guys who live in a tunnel under Las Vegas. They're down on their luck. They're addicted to drugs. One of them kind of gets it into his head that there are magical, or not necessarily magical. He just gets it in his head that there are societies living underground, that we just don't know about them, that, they've probably been down there for thousands of years. And he kind of proposes this plan where they just travel downwards and, hopefully arrive at this utopia, nirvana place where they'll just be the happiest drug addicts in the world. It's bizarre, but anyway, metaphorically, it's about addiction. It's about you fall down one hole, and then instead of climbing out, you fall down another hole, and you fall down another hole. But I really go everywhere in this novel in terms of genre. Each chapter, I feel, kind of represents a different genre of horror. There's definitely a body horror chapter, and there's definitely a sci-fi chapter. And then by the end, it gets into real dark fantasy, heavily inspired by William S. Burroughs and Clive Barker.
Oh,
so
nice.
So that's kind of the bulk of it.
That's killer. The inspiration from Clive Barker is huge for me because he's one of my favorite authors, and I just love Clive Barker as a person too. I mean, he's like a magical dude, Yeah,
he really is. I saw him right before the pandemic at Shockfest in Vegas. I love that he's still getting out and about. And, there's a connection to Encyclopocalypse. Mark Miller, who runs Encyclopocalypse, used to be the head of Clive Barker's imprint, Seraphin. So,
Oh,
he's in that world. He did some of the Boom Hellraiser graphic novels. Some of those are written by him.
oh,
So,
nice.
there's like a Hellraiser connection to Encyclopocalypse, and they work with Peter Atkins, who wrote some of the best Hellraiser sequels, and Doug Bradley did some narration. The actor who plays Pinhead. So
Mm.
it just feels really great to have made something so clearly inspired by Clive Barker and be someplace where his sensibilities are understood and appreciated.
Yeah, most definitely. Have you ever got to like speak to him for a good bit of time, or?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, that's kind of a bucket list for me. Maybe I'll get to him one of these days.
Yeah, same here. I've been trying to get in communication with him for a while now, but it's not the easiest thing to do. I've
He's
sent emails
eccentric.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's eccentric and he's private, so good luck to both of us, yeah.
Yeah, my former band, we wrote a whole album that was pretty much dedicated to Barker. It was inspired from the Great and Secret Show, which is probably my favorite Clive Barker book. And so we did a whole album that was around that, and I was like, man, I'm gonna find him and at least send him the albums, see what he thinks of it. It's metal and stuff. I'm sure he
Yeah.
appreciate it. So I did get him. I don't know if it was him. It was somebody on Twitter. It could be somebody that was running his page at the time. This is many years ago. They liked it, but I never got any further than that. But
Yeah.
him and Mick Garris did a really killer episode on the Postmortem podcast not too
Oh
long.
man, such a wonderful episode. And Postmortem is part of the Dread Central podcast network. So, when I was still working for Dread Central, Mick and I were sometimes in communication weekly. He's such a great guy, and Postmortem is the best horror podcast on the planet right now. No offense, but I
Oh, it,
mean,
it really is. I mean,
he's so
he's a
elite.
god. So
Yeah, yeah, and he gave a really cool blurb for the book as well. He read it and said some really kind words. So hopefully that'll give it a little boost as well when it comes out.
did you have any other like novels that inspired you for this novel?
Um, I mean, not really. I mean, I feel like it was much more inspired by movies than literature. So yeah, it was kind of like, I was really inspired by everything, and not just fiction, but fringe science, and then conspiracy theories, and even cryptids, make appearances in Deeper Than Hell. So, yeah, I mean, it really kind of encompasses, a huge amount of what we consider horror, and the horror genre. So, I think there's really something in there for everyone. It really tries to cover a lot of area, and it's a pretty slim read, all in all. It's longer than a novella, but not much.
Hmm.
You could knock it out in one or two sittings, and I hope people will. I hope they'll just immerse themselves in it, because people have been describing it as psychedelic horror, and I just love that because it is, it is psychedelic. It's almost fractal in the way it breaks off and in the areas it explores, and it has that kind of sensibility that anything could pop up next.
Right. I love the description of that, especially psychedelic horror. That reminds me a lot like the movie Mandy, which is my favorite film. I definitely
Great
classify
film.
it as like fucking psychedelic horror, occult greatness.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long was the whole? I know you said you've been writing this novel for a very long time, but like if you were to guesstimate, how long was the process total?
Well, I'll tell you because it's kind of an interesting story. I had entered a contest to write a serialized story for a website, a literary website, and they said at the end of 12 months, maybe we'll publish it as a novel. So, they said to enter to be considered, send us a synopsis. So I sent them a synopsis, and they're like, "Great, you made it to the semifinals. Now write the first chapter and give us a complete outline." So I wrote the first chapter and I gave them a complete outline. And I didn't ultimately get selected. I wasn't one of the authors that they picked, but I had visualized it so much that I decided to knock it out. And kind of as an exercise, I tried to give myself a month for each chapter. And then no matter how good or bad I thought the chapter really was, I was going to move on to the next chapter. I used all the parameters that they had set. Each chapter was going to be between 3,000 and 5,000 words. And, I was going to do one a month, set myself on that timeline. And, there were some months where I just didn't get around to it. I took 2 months, but I think I wrote it all over the course of maybe 14 or 15 months.
Okay, that's cool. That's not too bad.
It gave me a chance to really immerse myself in the genre of each chapter,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like you took your time and you got it the way you want it. You weren't rushed or nothing.
Yeah, I wasn't rushed, but you know what? Like, it really helped, like having these like artificial parameters. It's like I had tried writing novels a couple times before, and I just gotten too far out in the weeds. I didn't have an outline, and I just started at the beginning and figured I'd be done when I'm done. But you kind of don't know what to include, and you just end up including everything. And then, yeah, like I said, it was like getting lost in the weeds. But having this outline that I had made and working within these parameters just made me sharpen it up, and ultimately I think it's better for it.
Have you ever read the book on writing from Stephen King?
I haven't.
Yeah, people say it's like a gold mine for writing, and from what I understand, from the little bit I've read from it and stuff, and seen some like talks with Stephen King, is he doesn't even go in with an outline supposedly. I'm like, how in the hell do you do that?
I mean, yeah, I can understand, because like I said, I tried it a couple times, and I figured I just include everything, and I can go edit it and take things out that are pointless and add things that I don't quite remember. And I wasn't even really editing as I went. I was trying to not edit myself and just push forward. And like I said, I was just getting too far out there.
Right, and I'm sure being super busy and stuff with doing Dread Central stuff, and and this, I mean, it probably took up a lot of your time too. So
well, yeah, I mean, when I rose in the ranks at Dread Central, from the time I was managing editor, that was my sole focus. It was just the website, and all my own personal creative endeavors took a back seat. And it was only when I had this break, hiatus, paternity leave, sabbatical, call it what you will, that I put a lot of other irons in the fire. I thought, like, what am I going to do for this next chapter of my life? I'm married now, fatherhood, what's next? I spent a good decade in horror journalism, and I think I had a great tenure at it. I think that's kind of about enough, which isn't to say I'm going to leave horror journalism behind. I'm still going to write nonfiction and biographies, and I'll still contribute to websites, along the way. But I really like this book world I'm in right now.
That's killer. And you said it comes out in June, so that means you hopefully be able to do some like hitting the cons and all that stuff, possibly.
I mean, we'll see. We're taking it kind of slow. We have a signing event that we're going to do at Dark Delicacies in Burbank in mid-July. We don't have all the details out there yet, so I don't want to give the date. But if folks follow me on Twitter at Josh_Millican, Millican, I'll give you all the updates. But yeah, I'm going to start with that and then kind of just see where it goes. And the great thing is now, so many great podcasts like yours, I feel kind of like I'm on tour and I haven't left my office.
That's killer. Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, like the horror podcast thing has really boomed in the past 5 years or so. Like so many killer horror podcasts out, and you can get your voice heard, in so many different ways now.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, at Dread Central, I was the interviewer, so I was always kind of like, you understand, you kind of, you get a little stressed out. You're like, is this interview going to go well? What's this guy going to be like? Am I going to have to like pull stuff out of him? So it's so nice to be on the other end of it and have you asking me questions and me just being able to stream of conscious,
No, it's definitely a lot easier to be on the other side for sure, because I've been on a couple
That's
of
why I'm loving it. I'm loving it. It doesn't feel like work at all. I'll do all the podcasts. Bring it on.
Yeah, I've only had like maybe a couple that I, felt kind of like, it's good, but I'm kind of forcing a little bit. But all have been pretty smooth, thankfully. So far, I still got a lot more to do. So
yeah,
I've heard some horror stories from certain people about some people they had on their podcast or were just interviewing for like a magazine or something and stuff. I'm like, hopefully I never encounter that, or at least not anytime soon.
Oh man, I was at a convention and I was moderating a panel, and I'm not going to say who it was because she was an absolute mess, but it was a Scream Queens panel, and I had some wonderful guests, and then this one woman, who was in a main staple horror franchise in the 80s, a victim of a very iconic slasher.
Mhm.
And, I asked her a question, and it was really just kind of obvious that she had kind of like lost it on meth, and she started just going on and kind of talking about how, like, she did nudity in the film, even though she was underage. And, it was kind of like, I really want to just put the brakes on it. It was wild, man. It was wild.
Yeah, I bet you come across some crazy ass wild stories in your time of doing your stuff. Well, like, what's some of your like the craziest shit you ever encountered?
I mean, that was it, it was kind of like, wow, what did you just say? No one understood her, and I had to kind of like be like, okay. And then next I'll ask, Kelly Malone, what's going on? But anyway, that was wild. At the same convention, it was called Classic Convention in Bastrop, Texas, one of the best. It's not huge. It's downright small, but it feels huge with the community and the amount of intense, wonderful stuff they provide.
Hmm.
I did a lot of moderating for that one, and there was just a lot of thinking on my feet. That, I mean, you of everyone knows, because you want to have set questions, but you also want things to be organic and natural.
Right. Yeah, totally. You don't want to have just a whole bunch of questions written out there and like, oh, going from here and there. And when I first started podcasting, I had more questions than I had anything else, so it wasn't quite as organic. But as I've been doing this longer, I've gotten better with it. And I took mix advice on that. Mix like just let the conversation flow.
Absolutely.
And what he says goes because he is the master of horror. So
That's right. The founder of the Masters of Horror.
yeah, and one of the nicest dudes ever. And like, when I talked to him, what was it, a few months ago? I was just amazed how nice he was. He was everything I thought he would be. It was like so fucking cool.
Yeah. He's like a vegan and he never did any drugs. He looks like such a hippie, but he's such a straight dude. I love it.
Yeah. He hasn't done none of that stuff, and yeah, he's in really good health, and eats right and stuff. And I think we're kind of on a similar boat because I don't do any drugs and I don't really drink at all. So it's like, oh, it's kind of cool. And we got long hair, so we can just
Yeah.
go with that. Like, cool, really long hair horror guys. But yeah, he's Mick is really fucking cool. Who's some of like the top people you've met that really have impressed you over the years?
I mean, like I said, Mick Garris, that we both agree on. Jen and Sylvia Soska, I
Mhm.
met them, right when they were coming up in their careers, right around the time American Mary came out.
Mhm.
I was just starting out as a journalist, and that was their first film that really broke through. They had done a film before that, Dead Hooker in a Trunk, and I had actually been following them since then. So I was really excited for American Mary. Every time I would write an article about them, even before I was working for Dread Central, just doing my own blog or a really small horror site, one of them would always write me and thank me for the
Oh,
press, every single time, even though I was like a nobody. And that's just always been really great about them. And I met the ladies 2018, I think, at a festival, maybe 2017.
mhm.
And then every time they're in LA, we've just really loved hanging out and connecting. I honestly consider them friends. They'll like text me on my birthday every year, and when this pandemic's over, when they're back in LA, I can't wait to hang out with them.
Yeah, super cool. I've only seen nothing but good things from them, and I love American Mary. It's a great film.
Yeah. Rabbit, their remake of David Cronenberg's Rabbit. I don't know what happened with that because it's so good. And it just flew under everybody's radar. It just didn't make the splash it needed to. I mean, it had such a great ending. It was such a wonderful tribute to David Cronenberg, who's having his own renaissance right now.
Hmm.
Rabbit, the Soska Sisters Rabbit, you really need to go back and check that out, people.
Yeah, I agree on that. That came out during the pandemic, like the first start of it, right? Maybe that's why it went under the radar so heavy.
I don't really know. There are some theories, but yeah, I think it was Shout Studios that ultimately was their distributor. And I think their plans for a big theatrical just didn't materialize for some reason. It came out like really towards the end of the year. I think we're talking about 2019. So this is, or maybe even 2018. I don't remember,
Me
but
neither.
but yeah, whatever year it came out, it came out towards the end of the year, and I think that people just missed it.
Yeah, I remember enjoying it. I've seen it once. I'm not big on watching movies over and over. I like to give it time to breathe. You know what I mean? So, and first time I watched, I enjoyed it. So I think I
But
may have reviewed it on my website. I don't remember.
it's great. I mean, and it's great multiple times because you take different things away from it in different times. You know, you one time you're just really immersed in the body horror, and then another time you can really think about the themes that they bring into it. You know, the whole idea of beauty as a disease. It's just fascinating.
Speaking on like the remake of Rabbit and all that stuff, what are some of your favorites of like the past 10 years or so, movie wise?
Favorite favorite remakes?
Remakes or just originals, either or both.
Well, I mean, in terms of remakes, and probably remake or not, I love Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead
Oh,
2013. I love it. I mean, I'm so bummed that Mia never got a sequel and that tangent of the Evil Dead universe just stagnated. It was so awesome. That was a remake done right in every respect because it was of its own. It paid tribute to its source, and it didn't take anything away from the source. You can still go back and love and appreciate all the Evil Dead movies without saying this remake is better or worse. And they could have just connected it to the same universe for continuity. I'm so disappointed that that tangent just kind of withered on the vine. But I guess they have the new one coming out, Evil Dead Rises.
hmm.
So I'll be excited to see that and to see if I'm just overreacting and to see if the course is still true.
Yeah, I hope it is because yeah, that Evil Dead remake was great, and seeing it in the theaters was really cool because the scene where takes out the turkey, I think it's a turkey saw off the arm and stuff. Like people are like walking
Yes,
out the movie theater. I'm like, oh fuck yeah, this is awesome.
I mean, yeah, it was great. I saw it in the theater too, and let me tell you something. I went in expecting to hate it. I went in on opening night because I was a horror journalist and I was going to review it for whatever site I was writing for at the time, and I was ready to just savage it. Like, how dare you remake Evil Dead? But it was great. I freaking loved it, and I still do. Another movie. You said what movies the last few years? I saw
hmm.
Hereditary at Fantastic Fest a few months before it came out.
Hmm.
And at the time, and even still now, I think it's the scariest movie I've ever seen. I really do. And I don't know if that's because I saw it in a theater before there was any expectation, but, it was like seriously like, an immersive experience. And it just really like rocked me to the core. Couldn't believe it. So yeah, I still think it's the scariest movie ever made.
It's super dark, man, and it just gradually just gets like fucking so intense, especially towards the very end where everything just like boils down to fucking craziness.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you, that Act One spoiler, it's almost safe to talk about because it's been out for so many years now, but I won't. But you know what happens in Act One that blows everyone's mind? When that
Yeah.
happened, the woman sitting next to me, I didn't know her, it was a festival. The woman sitting next to me like drew her knees up to her chest and just like buried her face. She was just like traumatized and like I'm a sensitive person, even a little empathic, and like I felt her trauma, and it doubly rocked me. Not only the traumatic thing that you witness on the screen, but like feeling someone else just be like wrecked by it. It was like wow.
Yeah, I could totally feel that with her. When I saw that scene, I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, holy shit, where'd that come from? I was like, fuck,
Right, right.
brutal. Yeah, I agree with you. Heredity is a damn good film. It's definitely one of the scariest ones out there. I would put it
Yeah.
maybe in the same like category with like maybe The Exorcist.
That's what I would exactly. I'd say, scarier than The Exorcist. You got a lot of people nowadays who will be like, "Oh, The Exorcist isn't even scary," but it's like, shut up. You're too young or too jaded. I don't know, but one of the things I loved about Hereditary were those scenes where everything's kind of like normal. It's like quiet, but then you start noticing things in the shadows. And
Mhm.
again, I don't want to be a spoiler, but there's the one scene where the son kind of like sits up in bed in his room and it's dark, and it's only after like 4 or 5 seconds that you see there's something in the shadows, and you could feel people in the theater noticing it at different times. Like someone over here would gasp, someone over here would be startled, and then slowly like everyone sees it and it's just like, whoa, fantastic shit, fantastic cinematography.
Yeah, that's the shit that gets me, man. It's the subtle stuff, you know. It's not like the blood and gore and thrown in your face, wherever that scares me. I'm not really scared by film. That's why The Exorcist holds a big thing with me, just because it's this pure, like, kind of, it's terrifying almost, you know, and it still holds up till this, you know, to this day. And it's
Yeah.
the subtleties, man, like, that really get me.
The thing that always scared me most about The Exorcist, even though like I'm not religious, I'm not Catholic or Christian, but the thing that always really scared me about The Exorcist was it seemed to imply that it didn't matter how good you were, because Reagan was just like a normal, sweet little girl, and like something super terrible happened to her. It was just like, for me, what's terrifying about The Exorcist is it says like really bad things can happen to really good people, and that's just sad and terrifying.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It's very true. I got to witness that. It was on a Halloween many, many years ago. They did a outside movie theater type deal. It wasn't a drive-in movie theater, just a place doing a little special thing for Halloween, and they were showing The Exorcist outside. And there's like at least 300 or 400 people out there, and their reaction said it all, man. I was like, yeah, this one still hits hard for people.
Right. I saw it in the theater when this is probably like 20 years ago now. They came out with the version you haven't seen, with a few things added in, the staircase crab walk, and a couple other subliminal flashes of the Pazuzu face or whatever. But yeah, I saw it in the theater too, and for me, yeah, it absolutely still held up. There's a palpable sense of dread in the audience, and you feel like you're right in that room as that exorcism is going down.
Yeah. It's the best to experience either alone in the dark or, like I said, with a whole bunch of people, just to feel that terror, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I let my dad borrow the DVD many years ago. He's like, I haven't seen Exorcist since I was a kid. He's like, it used to scare the shit out of me. I'm like, cool, let's see if it still scares you. So, I let him borrow the DVD. He tells me the next day, yeah, I was watching it, and in the other room, I heard something fall down and stuff, so I turned it off.
That's funny.
And he saw it originally in theaters as a kid when it came out, so that's pretty fucking cool.
It's crazy because, like, I don't really believe in the supernatural. I feel like if ghosts were real, we'd have them on camera by now. It would be on CNN, and we wouldn't be arguing about it by now. But at the same time, like, supernatural horror movie they get me in a way. It's my favorite genre. Like the Conjuring movies. I don't believe that shit in a million years, but those movies scare me, and sometimes being alone after seeing a film like that can be difficult.
Yeah, speaking like The Conjuring or in that universe, sort of. One second, I'm trying to think of the film I'm talking about there. Well, actually, the first Conjuring was really good. I like the first and the second one a lot. I like the what do you call him? The big tall. He has a certain name they used him in the second Conjuring movie. The big
The
tall
Crooked Man.
Crooked Man, yeah. And find out that
Yeah.
wasn't CGI, that was an actor doing that. I was like, oh fuck, even scarier.
It's Javier Potet.
Yeah,
He's been in a bunch of things. He was one of the ghosts in Crimson Peak. He was Mama in Mama.
and
Uh,
Wreck.
yeah,
He
and he
in
was
Wreck, yeah.
the Medeiros girl in Wreck. You're absolutely right. So he's done all these crazy body horror things. That's something I'm so disappointed that of all the Conjuring characters who I wish would get a spinoff, that's definitely one of them. But I love The Nun too, and I'm stoked that they're making The Nun a sequel to The Nun as well.
Yeah, her character's fucking evil as shit. Man, she's just
Oh,
like the nicest fucking person too, which is
Bonnie
so
Aarons,
crazy.
have you interviewed her?
Oh yeah, I talked to her. I think it was this year, earlier this year. I got to talk with Bonnie. We've been stayed in contact since then. Like we'll send each other text messages or Facebook messages and stuff. And
Yeah, me
she's just the
too.
nicest person.
I interviewed her for Jacob's wife, and she's a nut. She was so fun. It was a live stream, so it was like flying by the seat of her pants. And Barbara Crampton was there, and Travis Stevens was there too. I almost wished it was just the two of us because she's a nut. She's so fun to talk to.
Yeah, I want to talk to her again. It was me, her, and Chrissy Fox. We were having a conversation about the new podcast that was coming out and a few other things, going over some of their new films and everything and stuff like that. And I was like, man, who knew that Nun would be so fucking cool? It's like a
Oh my
really
God.
awesome aunt or something, you know?
Yeah. She's just the best. I'd love to hang out with her.
And to me, she holds like one of that holds the title for one of the scariest things in cinema, and that was off of Mulholland Drive as the
Uh, For real.
Yeah, I'm like, man, that shit
I
there
saw
is
that in the theater,
terrifying.
and that scene petrified me. Everyone, there's something about it. It's brilliant filmmaking, and it is truly, truly dreadful and horrifying.
It's the shit out of nightmares, man. It's like nightmare logic.
Yeah, it really is.
So yeah, like I said, but yeah, dealing with her is really cool. She's like the nicest person. I'm gonna have another talk with her when she's done filming The Nun, hopefully. Well, The Nun was
Yeah.
it Nun, The Nun 2, right? This is the second film,
Nun
right?
2 is the one they're making now. Yeah,
I think that's really fucking cool.
absolutely.
Oh, the other film I was thinking of, that's kind of tied to the Conjuring universe is Insidious. Man, first time seeing Insidious, dude, I was like, wow, this is great. And it's only PG-13 because back then I think it came out when I was probably my early 20s or whatever. And I was like, well, if it ain't rated R, I don't want to see it. But Insidious changed my mind on that. I thought it was a fucking brilliant film.
I love Insidious. I love the lipstick face demon. That's one of the ultimate jump scares. And just the idea of this other world. Yeah, it reminded me of Poltergeist, and it reminded me of that Twilight Zone episode called Little Girl Lost, where this girl just kind of slips into another dimension.
Hmm.
The further really reminded me of that, and I loved it. Just the idea of this sunless nightmare world. Yeah, these hallways and liminal spaces. It was wonderful.
Yeah, when the Tiny Tim music came up when he's sharpening his like claws or whatever, I'm like, oh man, that is fucking terrifying.
It really is.
I mean, Tiny Tim was kind of terrifying in his own right. Awesome artist and everything, but pretty fucking scary for his time.
I'm pretty sure that's Joseph Bishara who plays that character, and he does some of the other characters in Insidious, and he's also mainly known in horror for the soundtracks he composes. He does all the soundtracks for Insidious.
No shit. He's got good
Yeah,
taste and hell of work on the soundtrack because that soundtrack is great.
it sure is.
Speaking of new stuff, I don't know if you've seen. I'm sure you've seen it, but today I finally watched X.
Oh yeah, I did just watch it. When it finally started streaming, I thought it was fantastic. If I hadn't known going into it, I might not have put two and two together. That I don't know if it's a spoiler that Mia Goth plays two roles.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
she
I guess
plays
it's
it
not
well.
a I guess it's not a spoiler because it doesn't
No.
say anything about the plot. Maybe other people would like to know too. She plays her character who's her own age, and she plays the old woman who's like in her 80s, and
Yeah,
it's just
cool.
it didn't it looked all practical. It didn't look like they used any CGI, but it didn't look fake and rubbery either. And the yeah, it was awesome. Great flick, great movie. People should definitely check that one out.
Yeah, I think a big thing with that one to kind of cover up the old age makeup and stuff was the like use of shadows and how dark it was filmed. It really fucking helped all
Yes.
that. It made it so goddamn creepy because today was the first time I've watched it. I just got finished watching like 2 hours ago. I was like, God, it blew me away. I'm like, this is so fucking good because a lot of my friends recommended it to me. They're saying, well, this is kind of what the Texas Chainsaw remake should have been. This is more Texas Chainsaw than that. And I gotta agree, it definitely has that feel of a Texas Chainsaw film.
Yeah. It really does. Obviously one of the main influences, but both aesthetically and that with the tropes they've set up. The 20-something characters in the van. Yeah, a lot of similarities. You're correct.
There's a scene like it's to me, I think it's like shot for shot from the first Texas Chainsaw when Mia Goth is running out the house waving her arms and she's running into like the field or whatever. I swear that's like a shot for shot from Texas Chainsaw. I may be
Probably
wrong.
is.
It's got to be a homage to it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the shots where she's just in that foyer when she comes inside, when Pearl's showing her the pictures, that reminded me a lot of Texas Chainsaw too.
Mhm.
Both the original and the remake. There's that like you come in and you're immediately in a hallway with stairs on one side and dark hallway on the other. Great shit.
Yeah, I was super impressed. That's so far one of my favorite movies this year. X
Agreed.
lives up to all the hype I've been hearing about and stuff. Because biggest thing I hate is when I check out a film and it doesn't live up to all the hype.
Yeah, well, you got to be careful of hype, and as a journalist, I always was sensitive to that, because, I loved Hereditary, but I feel bad. I feel like maybe I hyped it up too much when I wrote about it and people were expecting, something else. And, I hate giving people false expectations.
Right. That's kind of like me with Mandy, but Mandy has a really good following and people understand it, because Mandy, I recommend to fucking everybody I meet, and I kind of judge them like if you like Mandy or not, you know what I mean? Like I can kind of judge some of your characteristics if you don't like Mandy, you know what I mean? Like I get a better feel for
Totally.
you. It's like, okay, we're in the same like place here, So if you like Mandy, you should check out, Beyond the Black Rainbow and all that kind of
I
stuff.
have, yeah, I've seen that too. And you know
Yeah.
what? There's the same sort of like cosmic horror, not quite reality vibe going on in Deeper Than Hell. If I may be so bold as to, draw the conversation back to my book in that sense. If you liked Mandy and you liked Beyond the Black Rainbow, I think you'd like aspects of Deeper Than Hell, that have to do with, the sort of telescoping of realities and, the inclusion of psychedelics into the storyline. So if those movies were up your alley, then you probably like Deeper Than Hell. You should pick it up when it comes out on June 14th
Oh, I
on
certainly will.
Amazon. Right on.
Are you doing audiobook version of that as well, or?
Yeah, the audiobook is currently in production, and I think it's going to sound great. Yeah, I gotta learn the narrator's name because he's doing a bang up job. Yeah, and my book is written in a first person narrator, and he's got a really great kind of snarkiness to him that fits the character so well. I can't wait to hear him deliver the entire thing.
That's killer. Yeah, I'm a big fan of audiobooks because when I'm at work, I work outside and stuff, so I have time in my truck, or I just throw my headphones in if I'm doing something outside and stuff and throw an audiobook in. I just think they're the best. I'm getting hooked on them.
Yeah, well, Encyclopocalypse, I mean, that's one of the tent poles of that, publisher. They pretty much do audiobooks for all of their releases. So, check them out. Some great narrators working for them.
Do they does all the like audiobook stuff go through their website, or do they like kind of throw it off on like Scribd and sites like that, or?
I think it's all on Amazon.
Okay.
You can go directly to encyclopocalypse.com. They do sell a lot of their books directly on there as well, if I recall. But yeah, definitely check them out, encyclopocalypse.com. It's a little treasure trove, It's a great site.
Yeah, and they're getting bigger. Like when I got that Wishmaster book, like I think they were kind of just getting rolling, and I've just seen them expanding in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's great to be part of this, organization, like right as it is, blossoming, as you've noticed. I think it can be a great, long lasting imprint for horror, and I hope people check them out.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a couple of my friends on this who also run another really killer horror podcast called the Necromaniacs podcast. My friend Mike Hill kind of heads that up. He's in the metal band Tombs. If you ever heard of Tombs before.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, he's the lead man on Tombs and stuff, and he's a fucking horror head. And yeah, he would definitely enjoy this. He would definitely enjoy your book because we're both into like a Lovecraftian, like sci-fi horror, weird shit.
Yeah, well, tell him about me and have him pick up the book and, hit me up if he wants me on his podcast.
Oh yeah, I definitely do that with Mike. I'm sure he
Cool.
would. So he's on tour right now with Origin and stuff. So which is
Nice.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Mike's a great dude, man. He's one of my inspirations for even starting the podcast. Because like I said before I did this, I was just writing reviews on a website. I just got done doing band stuff for 18 years, and I'm kind of doing what you do there. Just kind of switching up a little bit, trying something different.
There you go.
So
It's
it's a
great.
change. It's nice.
Yeah. It's really exciting, to be new at something again, at my age. But I love it, and being in this, horror literature community now that I'm kind of like sussing out, it's really exciting, and I'm doing a lot more reading now than I was doing when I was strictly kind of, focused on films. So I just feel like my mind is really expanding and my creative juices are really flowing. And yeah, I'm really into it. I hope I'll be known for, I was known for journalism and for being a journalist for 10 years. And now I hope that I'll be known as a guy who writes really cool books for at least the next decade.
Yeah, I think that's fucking awesome. I'm sure you will. I'm sure to get out there and fucking spread like wildfire. So
I appreciate it, man. I'm knocking on wood though.
Do you have any favorite authors? I know you mentioned Clive Barker and Burroughs. Anybody else that are your favorites just to read?
I mean, recently I've been reading Max Booth the Third. I read Maggot Screaming, which was a great, fun body horror zombie novel, kind of a absurdist almost, really gory. I also just recently read The Ruins by Scott Smith. You know, they made the film out of that in 2008, but I'd always heard that the book was even more grim and nihilistic, so I had to check it out. But your usual suspects, of course. You know, Stephen King. You know, I've been reading him since high school. You know, I love the way he's changed as a writer. You know, from starting out doing things like Carrie and Christine, and then moving into more serious psychological horror like Misery. And the fact that he's still real into fantasy, his whole Gunslinger series. You know, I love that he can kind of pop all over the genre as well. Now he seems to be really embracing, detective, hard-boiled noir subject matter. I just think it's great. I love how he's ever evolving.
Yeah, he does it all, man. He, like I say, he does the horror genre, he does sci-fi, he does fucking true crime type stuff. Like he's all over the place, and it's always pretty damn good, you know. Like the whole Dark Tower series was fucking amazing. It took me 2 years or so to get through all of them, but what a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now I'm like half reading a couple different things. I'm reading Parachute by Holly Ray Garcia. I'm reading The Worm and His Kings by Haley Piper. So just really trying to catch up and familiarize myself with not just the yesterday's greats, but the people out there right now who are moving and shaking.
Yeah, most definitely. Out of the new stuff I've been reading, man. I don't know if you've read the actual novel, The Ritual.
I haven't, but I've heard it's great.
Dude, I mean, the movie was cool on Netflix and everything. It was it was great for what it was, but the novel, like, is far superior, man. Adam Neville's fucking brilliant, and especially if you're a metalhead too. Like, the Ritual like ties in directly with the black metal, and
Nice.
he definitely knows his shit about black metal, the references he makes and stuff like that. So, like, if you're a metalhead and you love horror, like, the Ritual is a must read.
Well, I definitely will do it then because I love actually reading books that I've already seen the movie to and love the movie. Sometimes if you read the book first, the movie's just going to be condensed and it's going to be shorter and it's not going to be what you fell in love with. But if you love the movie and there's a book about it, I think it expands your appreciation of both. So
Most definitely.
I'll definitely check out The Ritual.
And
But
it's
also, I read, Lords of Chaos, that nonfiction that then they made the movie out of. I'm big into metal, and I love the fact that there's this metal movie that came from a book, and I love that whole crazy Scandinavian scene. It's like a time capsule.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, but I did kind of enjoy the film. A lot of people hate the film, but I thought it was pretty fucking entertaining, you know?
I love how it even says from the beginning that it's based on truth and a bunch of lies.
Hmm. Yeah, I love the metal and horror mashups. You know, I think that's like the best because it goes together so well.
Absolutely. And Rory Culkin, I think he was great. I think he's a great actor.
Yo, yeah, same here, man. He played that part super well, like, and he looked the part too. I mean, he was super
Really
like,
did.
yeah, I was impressed. So I like that. We need more black metal horror movies. Which there's some comedies out. I can't. There's that New Zealand one that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
Deathgasm.
Yeah, Deathgasm. I thought that was pretty cool. I like
There's the
that
one that was
comedy.
on. There's one on Netflix. I forget what it's called. It's just out now, but it's about like this school band. Do you know what I'm talking about? I can't believe
Yep,
I'm
and I don't
blanking
know
on
the
the.
fuck. I can't remember the name for shit, but I watched it with my wife, and we both liked it. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. You know, it's not bad. It's not hard or nothing, but it's still kind of fun.
Yeah, but it was still fun, and it was great to see, extreme metal like being portrayed as something that's, cathartic and healthy for a change.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the name of it. I was to look it up on my phone, but I don't even know where to start with it for the fucking name for that.
You'll have to like edit it in here somehow. The name
Yeah,
of the
I'll
movie
put it in the
is.
show notes or something.
There you go. There you go.
Also, another author. I don't know if you've read. I just got done with this book, and I'm super super impressed by it. It's you ever read Nick Cutter's stuff?
I haven't. What did he write that you just read?
The Deep.
Okay.
Dude, yeah, it's a total like I wrote up as Hellraiser meets Event Horizon underwater. That's what this.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, dude, it is so fucking good. There's even some Lovecraft elements in there too. You know, not heavily Lovecraftian, but there are some elements of it there. But it really has a Hellraiser feel underwater, though. It's like that's like goddamn, like some of the imagery is like super grotesque, super fucked up.
Nice, nice. Yeah, there's one chapter of Deeper Than Hell, if I may be so bold as to steer back, is a total homage to Clive Barker and specifically Hellraiser. It basically features this cult of wannabe Cenobites who are just taking, sex and drugs and body modification to really grotesque and irreversible extremes. So, I love, Clive Barker and, Deeper Than Hell also has Lovecraftian elements, kind of like how you're just mentioning in the deep, where they're there without kind of like overshadowing the whole thing. That's kind of
Mm.
how it is with Deeper Than Hell as well. It's almost like Lovecraftian elements and aspects are mentioned and acknowledged without really being major forces in the work. But you're writing something about cosmic horror, you almost have to acknowledge that realm exists. And I love the fact that Cthulhu and that whole mythology is a public domain now, so you actually can make Cthulhu a character in your fiction, and that becomes part of the expanding universe of it.
Yeah, and it always makes things better. Yeah, I think, anyways. Have Cthulhu and something like I
I
mean, that
mean,
makes shit better.
just knowing that the elder gods exist is really terrifying.
Right.
So
There's
just
some
kind of
recent.
acknowledging that world and knowing that there's a whole a mythos created. You just have to mention Cthulhu, you just have to mention the elder gods, and it invokes so much instantly.
Right. In your novel, is there like a big bad in it? You know, like the main like dark force enemy, or anything like that,
Oh,
or is it?
tons of them.
Oh yeah.
No,
Okay.
there's not really one. Like I told you, like, each chapter was kind of meant to be self-contained, and it's a constant journey downward. So there are really like 6 or 7 main settings throughout this whole thing as well. So not only are you going to different worlds, you're meeting different populations at each level, and there are some really big bads. There's this mad scientist wannabe Cenobite called Dr. Hopnadel, and he has syringes coming out of his fingertips, from these like modifications he's made, and he has like really old school like metal syringes actually embedded into his skull, so he can like shoot chemicals directly into his brain, into different areas of his brain. He's one of my favorites. But there are a ton of these crazy kooky characters. I can't wait for more people to read it, and then people who are artistically inclined, I'd love to see what their minds conjure, how they would interpret some of these baddies I have, because there are a bunch of them.
That's killer. And did you have who did your illustrations for the cover?
That's
Do you have?
Christian Francis. Christian Francis, he's part of the Encyclopocalypse team. He's one of the writers, and he's also a graphic designer, an extremely talented graphic designer. I'm glad you mentioned, the cover, because it kind of reveals more as you look at it, and I don't mind giving it away. Like, when you look at it, you kind of get this sense of depth and something. But what it actually is, it's a view from inside a syringe, and the syringe is basically filled with hell. It's amazing how he took just these core concepts and created something that really does pull you right in.
Yeah, dude, I love catchy artwork. That's a big thing with like VHSs and stuff, man. Like the artwork back in the day would really pull you into that movie. Even if the movie sucked or you didn't know much about the movie, at least go by the artwork and like have a good chance of enjoying that movie because, artwork's fucking killer.
Absolutely, absolutely. The artwork is so important. That's another thing I love about Encyclopocalypse. All of their books just look so damn good. I just love them.
Yeah, it's super collectible too, man. Like that all goes into my collection DVD, Blu-ray novel pile I have. Like I keep all that shit
Yeah, they're
in
so
different.
collectible. I've been picking up the new ones, that are being released ever since I, joined the clan. So, I love it. And my collection of Encyclopocalypse books are growing. And, I hope people will add my book to their collections.
Oh, I'm sure they will, man. Like I'm excited for it, and definitely want to get a copy as soon as it drops. And you said it drops again in June 15th.
June 14th.
June
It'll be
14th.
available. It's available now to pre-order for Kindle, but you can't pre-order the paperback until I think just a day or two beforehand. So, maybe check for it on, Monday, June 13th, because I think it should be available to order on Amazon by then.
And they only do they don't do hardcovers, do they?
Or what do you mean?
I mean, like, do y'all do like
Hardcover.
hardcover editions or?
Yeah, there's not going to be a hardcore for this run for the initial release, but it's worth mentioning. I've got a second book coming out through Encyclopocalypse this year, nonfiction. It's going to be a collection of all the interviews I did over my years at Dread Central. So that's going to be more of an extensive tome, almost like a reference book. It's going to have an index, and that'll most likely be released on hardcover. So, there are some Encyclopocalypse books that are available on hardcover, especially when they're more extensive. But for now, Deeper Than Hell is not an extremely long book. It's lean and mean, barely longer than a novella. So paperback's perfect for it. And the fact that it's anything physical is just so wonderful in this age where everything's getting co-opted to streaming. I just love the fact that I'll be able to hold my book in my hands.
No, that's fucking killer, man. I still love physical media, and it just holds that much more value now, especially with all the streaming stuff. Everything's fucking digital, this, digital, that.
Yeah. I mean, I've got thousands of DVDs and Blu-rays. I love my physical media. I feel like it's just so important, and I don't feel like I own it when all I have is a digital version of it. It just seems to just become part of my computer. But when you have the actual physical manifestation of the story of a book or a DVD, it just feels so much more profound.
Have you heard of the company that does like the reissue VHS stuff, Broke Horror Fan, Witter Entertainment? Have you heard of them?
Hell yeah. What's his name? I think the guy's name is Alex. He's great. He does the whole thing himself, and he's fantastic. I love Broke Horror Fan.
I got a whole fucking collection, like big bucks VHSs. I had to fight my way to like get a copy because when they go out, like when they go live, they get sold out in like 30 minutes. So
well, he only makes like a few hundred of each one, right?
Yeah.
No, he's great. One of the ones he did was Antrim, which is another movie that I love from the past few years. I don't know if you saw Antrim.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that film.
Yeah, it was definitely it had a different feel, and then the whole rumor, or not rumor, I guess was like a tagline they're using that this movie was real, real curse and all that shit. I thought that was fucking cool.
Well, I saw it at a film festival where they actually made you sign a waiver.
Nice.
Yeah. For those who haven't seen it, who are listening, Antrim was billed as this movie that could potentially curse you, and they were so serious about it that people who had seen the movie had genuinely committed acts of violence against themselves and others that they made you sign a release.
I love little stuff like that. Makes it feel dangerous. That's killer. I didn't get the VHS of that one though. That was sold out before I could get to it. But I'm happy I have my baby. So.
Well, that film belongs on a VHS version more than anything else, and it's almost good that they only made a few of them because it's supposed that the whole concept is that this is lost media that you would have to dig it up somehow.
Mm-hmm. And the VHS has its own magic to it too. The way it looks, it hides like flaws that a lot of HD shit has nowadays. And I don't know, there's a certain magic to VHS that I love, and I still love the way it looks now.
And Antrim, the fact that it's supposed to have been made in I think 1979, so it's the perfect media because nothing was HD back then.
No, and the stuff that they do like kind of redo and stuff and bring out the colors a little bit better. I mean, it's still cool and everything, but a lot of times I just prefer the original, from back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Is something scarier about that because it feels like you're looking at someone's nightmare or something that's not fully materialized. It still exists in a strange ethereal netherworld.
Yeah, I definitely get that feeling. I go on these YouTube searches sometimes for like obscure like 80s movies that you can't find on any streaming service, but sometimes YouTube has it on there. Like somebody's done ripped a VHS copy and it's up there, and like I just think that's like the best when you find a really killer film you forgot about.
Hell yeah.
So, all right. Well, Josh, this was great having you on the podcast, man.
Yeah, man. It was great. It was great talking to you. I love how thoughtful you are about, horror and just some real smart dialogue going on here. I appreciate you too.
I appreciate that and the kind words, man. And yeah, I love horror. Like horror and metal are my thing, so a lot of passion there.
Those are some awesome things. Yeah, I'm contemplating going to the Ramstein show in LA in September. It's just $75 for the nosebleed seats, man. It's killing
Oh,
me.
but I think it'd be worth it for Rammstein, man. Like this
I
might be
saw
the
them.
last tour, dude. So
Yeah. Have you seen them before?
I have not had a chance to see them. No,
Oh
I would
man, I
love.
saw them in Oakland 10, 12 years ago when they were coming through for a Sleep of the Salda tour. And yeah, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. I think I am going to go to see them in September.
Yeah, because a lot of these bands we want to see, like they're getting older and stuff, man. Like, oh, this is their last tour. Like, I want to see fucking Danzig. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I think Danzig, this might be their last tour. I'm like, man, you know,
Yeah, you never know.
you never know, man. Well, Josh, I hope you have a killer rest of your weekend, dude. And it was great talking with you.
Great talking to you as well, Brandon. Thanks for having me on.
All right, take care.